Oh, I sound funny. I've got an earbud in. I'm getting ready to talk. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I want to ask you a question, and that is, why should you or anyone do the 75 hard challenge? If you are doing it, you're going to hit a point in this challenge where you need to decide why you're really doing this, if you haven't already. And if you are starting this challenge, then you really need to think through this before you get into it, because if you watch one of my earlier videos, it's very clear that something like 96% of people who start the 75 hard challenge fail. So in order to prepare to succeed, you have to begin with the end in mind and plan. You don't want to plan to fail, you want to plan to succeed. And I want to share an epic story that not happened to me, but I got to live out, or I guess it happened, but my husband and I were involved with a really crazy, epic experience a few months ago with the flooding in East Tennessee with Hurricane Helene. And we had the incredible experience of helping rescue a couple people that were being swept away in the river by a truck, in their truck, that had got carried into the raging river. And so I want to talk about that in light of your why, and it comes back to something that that is tied to something I heard about years ago. I can't remember the scenario, but I remember somebody saying, the time to get faith, let me say it again, the time you need faith is not the time to get faith. And it was, I'm a God-fearing woman, Jesus-loving person, and so these were it was probably in circles, maybe in a church service or a message that I listened to. But I've really pondered that idea for years and years, the idea that the time to get faith, the time you need faith is not the time to get faith. And I want to connect that phrase to the story, in the sense that the time to be fit is not the time to get fit. The time you need strength is not the time to get strength. And you can say it in many ways, in many contexts. The time you need friends is not the time to get friends. The time you need money is not the time to get money. There are seasons in life when you have the opportunity to prepare for something, and you never know when the opportunity is going to come for you to act. And so I want to share how this opportunity that we had to help rescue a couple played out, because I think it's really pertinent to this idea of why the 75 hard or the 75 soft or the 75 mini are worth doing. But before I jump into that, I will acknowledge this isn't your normal vlog style video. I'm not trying to record everything I'm eating or doing all day long, and with the craziness of my life the last couple days, I just don't have the time or the bandwidth, never mind time to even really edit these videos. So I'm just trying to do it live style and in one take. But things are going pretty smooth in that sense. I feel like I have gotten, if you're new to the 75 hard, I'm presuming you all know what they are, but there's the 2 workouts a day, 1 45-minute workout outside, the diet, that you commit to a structured diet, no cheating, no alcohol, drink a gallon of water, I'm forgetting something, take a progress picture, and read 10 pages of something that is nonfiction, and literally a book that you're holding, not listening to an audiobook. And so I feel like I am doing much better about drinking. My second night in, I think I was standing at the sink at midnight, pounding my last, whatever these are, liter of water. So I am down to, it's late and I'm down to my last few bits, but I got my workouts in a lot earlier today. I did everything else really well except get a video done, and so I had to chuckle. I'm still working on managing this piece of it along with the chaos that's going on. And personally, it's still again, I don't swear very often at all, but a shitstorm in my life. And where I had a little reprieve yesterday, I was under the gun again, I felt like, in some ways today, or it was just emotionally, I don't even know if I would say an emotional roller coaster. There were just a lot of drama, and I feel like it was one of the harder days I've had in a long time, but also really good, and really I'm hopeful because things are coming to a head in one particular area in my life, and it's a really good thing because it's forcing change. And it's just, I find it fascinating that a lot of this it all came to a head the day I started this challenge 3 days ago. And so a lot of it is now piecing together these other bits of it. So anyway, I'm on the road, I'm in a hotel. Hopefully the light's better than the first night I did this. And yeah, lots that I'm figuring out on that end. But anyway, to my story quickly. This might be a little longer than I planned, but it's a really, really, really good story, I think. And it speaks to this idea of why you want to not only finish, why it's worth doing the 75 hard, why it's worth doing difficult things, but why it's worth finishing them, and why you want to use every chance in your life to use the seasons of preparation when you have them, because you never know when you need to draw on those experiences. And so my husband and my family and I, the day that the hurricane hit was a Friday, and my husband follows the news really well. And so somewhere about 4 o'clock, he had turned on something and saw some YouTube news channel that was showing that they were helicoptering people off of the roof, the hospital roofs in Irwin in East Tennessee, was just up the river from us. And it had only been, it literally had just, it had been published like a half an hour before, so it was, all of it was, or maybe it was happening live. And so we homeschool, and at some point, for some reason I was just like, well, let's just go, like, let's stop watching the news and let's go live the news. Let's go be the news. Let's go see what's going on. And so we grabbed our boys and we drove down to see the river. I'm like, you know, if they're giving, the river's flooding upstream from us, this is crazy. Like, I've been in at least one flash flood. I think I've been in 2 flash floods in the desert in the Southwest. Those are other stories for another day. Also epic stories. But anyway, we ran down, we got across the river, we drove around to a bridge to watch it, and another day, another time, I'll probably retell this story with more detail and show the flooding river and the epic, what we saw. It was just astounding. It got to the point, it got so bad, we watched for about 40 minutes at this one bridge, and the stuff that was started, how fast the water rose to cover that bridge, which was lower down, the debris and the trees, everything kind of hit from upstream about the time we arrived. And I can't even describe the sheer madness and the compounding terror of watching the raging river just rise and rise and rise, and trees and ice machines and ATMs come down the river, and just debris and construction stuff. It was before probably a lot of the bigger stuff a little bit later on. This was the first wave. It finally got to the point we were concerned power poles were getting loosened on the banks on either side of the river, and that they were going to drop, and like people could be electrocuted. And so my husband was really concerned about that, and so we and I was concerned at that point we might be trapped on the wrong side of the river, or the other side of the river. Like this bridge was clearly gone, and there was other ones, but if this was just the beginning, then it would. And we were getting alerts at that point about evacuating and away from the river, and so, or the river flooding. And so we crossed the river, but instead of turning to go home, I thought, you're out and you're kind of just aware of what's going on, and I was like, let's drive to the south side of the town where we live in, where there's a huge there's a spillway, and let's just go see the spillway. Like, this has got to be absolutely insane and awesome. And you're kind of caught up in the this was before the just absolute destruction hit, and so you're gripped watching this play out in front of your eyes, and it's almost like, I don't even know how to describe, like, you almost can't take your eyes off of the insanity and the madness and the chaos and the building tension. Like, it's just I don't know, it's magnetic to watch. And so we drove down south on our side of the river in case anything happened, and we were going to go see the spillway. We're still new to the area that we live, and this is embarrassing, but so we took the wrong road. We took the wrong bridge, the road to the bridge that I thought it was, and we ended up in the wrong place. But God had his own hand in it, because it was a divine appointment in the moment, and was strategic. And so we got to this river as there was someone from another sheriff department from outside our county, that they were already sending the sheriff's departments to kind of for backup, and he was there to shut down the bridge and make sure people were not trying to cross it. The road had flooded out, but it was on this side of the bridge because there was a low spot. So the raging river was still going under the bridge, a few hundred yards past, but the water had also backed up and actually was covering the road and flowing over the road, and was just continually rising. And this was like, there was 300 or 400 yards of low spot, or let's just say 400 meters for the rest of you. And my husband didn't even want to watch it. He was like, oh, we can't go across. We took the wrong turn. Let's just turn around and go home. And I was like, no, let's wait here. I'm going to run down. I'll go to the edge. I'll do a video or two. My boys and I, we'll just look around. And so we went down, took 5 minutes. I was talking to the sheriff. The kids were studying the ground. Crazy tip about chaos and a madness of like epic extremes. If you ever heard of the Thailand, the waves that come in Thailand, the tsunamis, they talk about how the animals retreat. And we had seen deer, actually on the drive to the bridge, we saw deer wandering through town in a really weird way. Like, you never see deer moving in broad daylight in a town. And then down, as the water was rising, my boys were studying the ground and talking about how the bugs were coming out of the water, like they were evacuating as the water rose. And as we were just turning around to leave, I looked up, and there was a red pickup truck that that was floating down the river, and it was way farther, closer to the main channel, and I could see it was tipped, and there was somebody in the back. It was like a candy apple red truck, a brand new one, we would later realize. But the guy in the back, there was a man in the back waving and yelling and screaming. And so I had my kids run back to get my husband, and he came charging down, and we both and at that I got in the sheriff's, or this deputy's, attention. So he was calling for backup, and when my husband arrived, we conferred, and we both decided we were going to wade into the river to go see what we can do. And meanwhile, I just started praying like a mother, as you know, that's maybe not very appropriate to say, but with my heart out. I prayed my heart out. So we were praying for this truck, that it would come closer and not be swept into the main channel. And amazingly and miraculously enough, the waters pushed it toward us. And so we waded out into the river quite a ways, and we were on the road, so the surface was actually, it was pretty safe in that moment, because, and my husband went even further out. He was probably the chest deep on the hard packed surface of the road, and as they got closer, he could talk to them, and he was yelling, and meanwhile I was conferring with this deputy. We were trying to get more backup. We were looking around to see if people had, like, what we could do to maybe well, I don't remember too much at that moment, I guess. I don't know if we were looking for ropes at that point or trying to figure out if anyone lived nearby that had boats or canoes, what our options were. So I was kind of trying to do logistics. Well, my husband had gotten far enough out that we figured out that the guy was yelling that his wife was handicapped and could not swim, and she was in the front seat. And so my husband kind of stayed on point talking with them as it drifted closer and closer. It was still, I want to say, about 100 yards out, but eventually this truck got tangled in some trees, kind of brush, and it never did kind of cross over the road, but it was being kind of pushed into these brambles and trapped. Meanwhile, so this is all like in a speed of like 10 minutes. The sheriff had waited out with us as well. He didn't even want us going into the water, but we pretty well said we're going, whether or not, we don't need your permission, we're going into the water. We're going to do something. We're going to try to do something. Now, we weren't being, I want to say, we weren't being stupid. I have a background with swiftwater rescue. I've done a lot of mountaineering, and I have a history of doing a lot of things like this. So, but I'm also now in a different stage of life, and we had 2 kids watching. And that's a very different thing to be now trying to rescue someone and be part of a rescue, when every step you're taking, especially when you're alongside your significant other and your partner, you're taking one step forward, going, Lord, how do we rescue these people? Help us rescue these people. And the next step you're going, oh God, don't let me die in front of my children. And so long story short, eventually there was one rescue truck that showed up, and a rescue swimmer who had a life jacket, and he had a big long rope. So he came out into the water with us. At that point, my husband had stayed on the high point of the road, and this truck was about 20 feet, I want to say, like, off the road, entangled in these trees a little bit, or not quite tangled, but pushed up into it. But we didn't know if that ditch of the road was like 6 feet or 20 feet deep. And I do know there's a lot of hazards when you get close to trucks that end up sinking underwater. We both knew this, and so we didn't want to get too close without having a better plan. And so this rescue swimmer came out. It took a few minutes. There was some chaos getting him tangled around branches. And when he set out from the road, I swam following him. I was like a stroke or 2 behind him, and we kind of swam if you can picture a triangle. My husband was about 20 feet this direction from me on the high point of the road, looking at the people this direction. And I swam out kind of on the hypotenuse of the triangle, if that makes sense, with this rescue swimmer. The sheriff stayed at this point where I'm this other corner on the triangle. And so as we left and were swimming this 20 or 30 feet out, the moment we left that high point, every stroke we took, that truck started sinking. The water had, at that point, the front window had been down, and the way it had been tipped and sitting there, and for the 15 minutes it had taken, 5 or 10 floating over, getting pushed into the trees, the brush. The 5 minutes had kind of been there while we were organizing the rest of the chaos of a rescue. And as we left the shore, I'm telling you, every stroke we took, that truck went underwater an inch at least. By the time we got to the truck, at half the cab was underwater, and the man reached in, if not 3/4 of it. The rescue swimmer reached through the window and pulled the woman out through the window. Now, the couple was a little bit older. I want to say they're in their late 60s, maybe even their early 70s. And the lady was a little bit overweight. So I don't even honestly know how he got her. It was like those windows were greased by the angels. but he pulled her out in one fell swoop. And in the same moment that he pulled her out, he was facing the other way, but my story, if I were to turn it around, he pulled her out of the window, and in that same moment passed her to me, and I started swimming her to shore. And it was not a great rescue swim because she was hanging on to me and I could not get her in the right position. But I also knew I only had to swim 20 feet, and I knew and amazingly in that moment I knew she was not panicking. She was hanging on to me for all she was worth, but there was not fear and panic. And somehow I kept my head above water, and I got her to the edge of where the sheriff was, and I was grasping. I mean, I was almost underwater, honestly, with what was going on. And he grabbed my hand and pulled me out and grabbed her and picked her up, and then he carried her to shore. The last 100 feet, by then there was an ambulance. They got her on a stretcher, and somehow, and then meanwhile my husband had jumped in at that point. He'd gotten through the brambles or around them, and this rescue swimmer, and they'd helped the other guy who got launched out of the truck or jumped. And by the time I turned around back on shore, I don't know, a minute later, I turned around after this woman was carried off. I wasn't even on shore. I mean, I'm just standing on the high point of the road, chest deep in water. And I turned around once I got my bearings, and the truck with this red pickup truck was completely submerged underwater and gone. And my husband and the other guy were swimming to shore, and the rescue. And so, you know, in 15 minutes, everything, there was, people went from being nearly dying, or even in that last minute or two, to being completely saved, and a miracle, truly a miracle. And in our county, sadly, one person ended up dying in another incident, but miraculously there were not two more added to that list. Now there's an incredible death toll. There's incredible horror stories out of the rest of what happened, and I can't even begin to. It's still incomprehensible, and now we've got so many other disasters everywhere around the country, it's almost been forgotten about. But I say this as an incredible story of hope and something good that came out of that tragedy. But I say it today because the key in this was, as I pondered this and we shared this story and talked about it, I was so thankful that I had decided 2 years ago to start making some radical changes in my health. And you can go back and see some of my initial stuff and, you know, the videos I've detailed about it. But despite a past life of being an athlete and a very, doing a lot of extreme sports for the last, 12 years that I've been married, and after having a couple kids and starting 3 different businesses, or starting 2 with my husband and building 3, just the stress and the different tolls, I'll just be honest, and maybe it's just a challenge women have being mothers. I get not every woman has it, others are rocking it, but I do know it is a challenge a lot of women face, and I guess I just made I kind of fell to the bottom of the priority list of taking care of myself. And so I've gained, I had gained 40, 50 pounds over the last whatever years. And so 10 years ago, I committed I made some major fitness commitments and challenges. I've been moving toward it. This, for me, doing the 75 hard, is now doubling down on it. No more details are needed. The point of the whole story is this: the time you need fitness and strength is not the time to get fitness and strength. The time you need faith is not the time to get faith. There is a season and a time for everything, and you want to be prepared and ready for whatever comes your way. And that was probably one of the, I've been involved in some other disasters. I've been involved with some deaths in the wilderness, or like really terrible situations. But that was probably one of the most poignant experiences of my life, and absolutely profound to be performing a rescue alongside my husband. Like, it was it next to like giving birth and probably getting married. It was definitely one of the highest points of my life, and especially because it ended so well. But I've been really rocked since that day and really gripped by this fact that, man, I'm so glad I had the strength I had, and I had built I've been building my endurance. It's still not near where I was years ago, but thank God I was moving in the right direction. And how much more, what other reason and motivation do I have to continue moving in this direction and to keep making my health and my fitness and strength a priority? And so I say all this because if you do the 75 hard, you're gonna get hit at some point and want to quit. You're gonna hit the wall in some way, and it's the only thing that will help you get through and push through is your why. Why are you doing it? And if you haven't started, you're gonna face that as well at some point. Now, I faced it on day one, literally on day one, with a hurricane shitstorm, and I'm still in it. And so it comes back to even your why. That when you need a reason to do something, when you need your why, it's not the time to get it or find it. Because if you have to scramble to figure out why you're doing something, it's not there. There's no motivation for you to continue in the moment. And that's where you cheat on something. You give up. You quit out and you quit and you can't endure in the face of difficult circumstances. But when you know your why, when you've made it you've taken time to get clear on why you're doing something, it's like pulling something out of your pocket. You have it right there. You know why you're doing it. And so for me, when I dealt with this shitstorm, and when all hell broke loose on day one, I mean, all hell broke loose in my life, and it seemed like everything was opposing the concept or the idea of me even doing this, never mind a whole bunch of other stuff. I had my reason. I was doing this to double down on my fitness. I was doing this because one of my words for the year was that I was going to get your house in order, and in the sense of like get priorities, take care of details that haven't been taken care of, just put things in order. And I've been really excited and moving forward to taking care of things that mattered. And so these are just different. I had reasons. I had 2 or 3 reasons, deep reasons, that I wanted to pursue this. And so when I was hit with the question, I could press through. So, really long video. I haven't done one of these in a long time, but hopefully there was something valuable in it. And I hope that you will check back for more. And if you found value in this, please subscribe and please share this video or another one. And I really hope that, I'm not doing this because the desire I have is to see that the power of change and the power of growth and transformation, the ripple effect of it. And so I hope a few nuggets and stories like these and the things that are motivating me and challenging me and have helped me get through difficult things will also be what can help you. So I'll see you in the next video tomorrow, and stay strong, finish strong, and I so appreciate you. Thank you.